Welcome back to the Dyson Sphere program. You join me as I make my way back to the home planet, just going past the Dyson Sphere, which, yeah, very cool. When we are there, I'll show you whatever we're up to with the nodes, as well for the Dyson Sphere. Now this guide is about how to produce hydrogen, which was actually one of the problem children that I had for a really long time, but now I'm like drowning in hydrogen, so I'll show you how I achieve that. Alright, and you happen to run out of different things at different times, and hydrogen stays a problem child for the whole game, mainly because it's byproduct in a lot of cases, which is not great. But what's going on here? No demand. Oh, look at that! I finished off all the structural points. So if we look at the Dyson Sphere, okay, so that's done. That's done. That's done. And okay, so now it's just, I guess, a matter of time. As the Dyson Spheres here being finished off, which is pretty cool. So in a few videos time, by the end of this, I hope that it's actually all done. And you can see there's a massive amount of solar sails that we have in orbit. So I don't think that I really need to change anything. It's just waiting for it, as some of these last few holes are being patched up with solar sails. Okay, so the first way that you are likely to be able to produce hydrogen, I'm just trying to find my first, actually I think it's on the other side of the planet. I'm trying to find my first place where I produce hydrogen. Okay, I think it's along here. And yeah, so it'll probably be in connection with crude oil production. And the good thing actually about crude oil production is that it's one of the things that'll never run out. So it's it just keeps going. Like a lot of the other supplies like coal and all that sort of stuff eventually runs out. You know, there used to be somewhere around here, yeah, here, there used to be a huge amount of coal here, but it's mostly gone now. But you know, I've had these oil extractors going for the whole time and it's still producing this same amount. So that's the benefit of the oil production series. Now the problem with it is that usually the production produces multiple outputs. So for example, the refining process here, actually no, I should show you this one. Yeah, the crude oil to you can see what the problem is. The crude oil refining process to refined oil produces both hydrogen and refined oil, right? And these aren't always used together. So sometimes your bottleneck might be refined oil and other times your bottleneck might be hydrogen. So in this case, this machine isn't operating because it's got it's backed up with refined oil. Now the hydrogen is all gone, but the refined oil isn't. So let's say that one of my production lines needed refined oil, but I couldn't actually consume this hydrogen, then that production line isn't going to work anymore, even though I actually have a huge amount of machines that could produce it, right? Now in this case it doesn't really matter because none of my production lines rely on hydrogen or on refined oil, and you can see mostly it's flowing anyway, right? And it's just the last few of these machines that are stuck. But I found in many cases that some production lines just weren't producing because I had backed up hydrogen or I had backed up refined oil. Now there are a couple of solutions to it. The first solution is to put these storage facilities all over the place. And I think that's a good starting point. The problem with them is that they take up space, and you need quite a lot of them, especially if you've scaled up your production quite significantly, for them to actually give you a decent amount of time before they just fill up. I'll show you an example where I have a huge amount of these storage facilities put up for another reason. But the reason these are good as well is because they balance out a little bit of imbalance in your system. So sometimes you might need more crude, other times you might need more hydrogen, and if you have a bit of storage, then even if you're in balance for a time, you can still, your production lines keep going. But on the other hand, they also hide problems in your production line. So for example, if your hydrogen production is broken, but you still have all of this hydrogen in storage, then you won't know until it runs out of storage that you actually have a problem by just looking at some of your production lines. Okay, so then the next way of producing hydrogen, and I've done quite a lot of that, is to actually take the hydrogen and refined oil and produce hydrogen and energetic graphite. Now that I think nets you a little bit more hydrogen than just the base production, but again, it has that multiple, even in this case, there's multiple input and multiple output, which is even harder to deal with. Although multiple input is usually fine, multiple output is the thing that's really hard to deal with. So in this case, you also have to figure out what to do with the energetic graphite if you happen to be stuck with hydrogen. Anyway, so one of the other ways of dealing with excess hydrogen or other materials in the oil supply chain is that you can burn it. But the problem with burning it is that you have to have power demand to be able to burn the material in the first place. And then let's say that you don't want to burn it anymore and you want to actually start using it, then you might run into power supply issues on your planet as well. So I found that burning it is not really a very reliable solution. Okay, then the next way of producing hydrogen is actually, if you find and I'm just trying to find where I'm doing it. Oh, actually here you can see my huge amount of hydrogen storage, and you can also see that it's being at least maybe half of it is full. So at some point I might have to just destroy these and replace them again, which is a way of clearing the excess storage. But you know, it's something that you have to keep doing. It's not automated. But anyway, so if you happen to find a planet, sometimes you might find it locally. If you happen to find a planet with fire ice, then you have a much easier way of producing hydrogen by just a one-step process. And actually, I think you get a decent amount of hydrogen out of this. It's about 2 for 1, so it's okay. And it also produces the graphene, which is quite handy. Although for a while, when I was relying on this to produce hydrogen, you can also see that I have a huge amount of graphene stored up here. But now actually the most important part of this production line is to produce this graphene and not the hydrogen anymore. Now the best way that I found that you actually produce hydrogen, I have to change into another solar system, but I'll do that in a moment, is to actually get it from gas giants. Now there's actually a gas giant in this solar system as well, so I technically didn't have to do this in the same way. Like I could have just gone to this gas giant and mined the hydrogen from here, but you can see the rate is kind of low, only 0.26 per second, whereas in other cases I think I found something that's 4 times more effective. I might have some other advantages, so that's why I went to another planet to collect the hydrogen, I believe. It was actually like right where I was looking. It was just hidden behind all these tanks. So you can see here that I have a huge amount of remote demand, or I've set up remote demand for hydrogen here. So I'll show you the other end of it. It is in the Tejac system. Actually, I think it's a pretty cool solution. It takes quite a bit of material to make it happen. But once you make it happen, then you have a permanent solution for... What did it say? There's not enough space warpers. Okay, I'll go back and collect some more. Didn't think that I was running out of them. Anyway, just go pick up some more. Maybe they changed how many space warpers it takes to go, because I had 100. I don't think that I actually used 100. Okay, let me just take another 100. Yeah, I had another 100 here. What's going on? Oh, I just have to put them in the put them into, also put a little bit of energy back in. Okay, let's go again. Now I have 200 space warpers, so I can keep going forever. No, I don't want that. Now it's a struggle to find the system that I'm looking for. I had it just before. Okay, maybe that logistics vessel. Ah, here we go. Yeah. Okay, so just waiting for that planet to disappear on the left there. And then I will activate it. Okay, so basically you have to produce these orbit collectors for gas giants. I'll show you that in the production or in the replicator in a moment, but it takes some fairly advanced materials to produce it, and quite a lot of those materials as well. And you need quite a few of those collectors because the rates are fairly low. For hydrogen they're reasonable, but for some of the other materials they can be a little bit low. Now I think it is... which one would it be? I think it's 1 and 2. Yeah. Okay, let's... Oh, I didn't actually know that it lets you... That's pretty cool. So what you can see, what I've done here is that I've actually got these, once it puts me into the local planet mode, which it still hasn't. Okay, cell ends. I've got these orbital collectors. I'm actually collecting both hydrogen and deuterium. I'll make another guide about deuterium, and because it's a pretty cool production line actually. It's kind of unfortunate that I managed to just find it, but anyway, I've still got the production line going, so I can show that to you. But so the hydrogen here is being collected, and a huge amount of it is actually being collected in these orbital collectors, and you have to build them here. And as you can see, they take accumulators, which are fairly late. They take these super magnetic rings, which are fairly late in the game, and they also take one of these interstellar logistics stations. So they're pretty advanced in terms of some materials they need as input, and then you need a lot of them. But once you have a lot of them, like I'll just keep flying around this planet. I think I've almost built a ring around this planet with them. But one of the other things to keep in mind with them is that this planet says that it only produces 0.04 per second of this deuterium, but actually there are certain multiples that are applied to this collection. I don't know where you can find the multiples. Maybe the fuel chamber regeneration? No, I think that's just hydrogen. But there's some sort of multiple that's actually applied to the collection, so it's not actually 0.04 for deuterium, and whatever the other one was, about 1 per second for hydrogen. This is a lot more, but you still need these quite a number of the orbital collectors, and you can only place them on the equator, so that's why you can see they kind of align around the equator of this gas giant. Actually finding the equator is a little bit hard, but just look at the, if I go out, see, you can see how there's sort of gases moving around, and they move along the equator. So you just find where the gas movement is kind of the longest, and that's where the equator is. That's how I managed to find it. But yeah, so in summary, the hydrogen production is a little bit painful to begin with, because it's always tied up with another material. It's like a side output that's being produced as a part of another production line. But going into a gas giant and collecting it from a gas giant is actually a really effective way of collecting the material, although it's a fairly late game thing to do. So thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you next time.